Hello and welcome to Mish Pete's Barbecue. You might ask where we've been, and we moved. So we're actually in Arizona now, Peoria, Arizona, where I'm setting up the business here. As you can see, we got the shirts to rep the brand. Figured I'd bring you in. We're gonna cook a brisket for a good friend of mine and a customer. This is about a 17 pound prime brisket, full packer cut, which means the flat and the point are together. And I figure, for those of you who haven't seen it done, or I know there's a lot of videos on how to trim, but I figured I'd show you how I trim it. Normally I'm gonna start actually fat cap down, because I'd like to see how much I trim off the top. I'm not a big fan of that being open already, so I guess that's what happens when you Instacart your brisket. But here we go. So, decal. Let's get rid of the decal first. Biggest fat piece there is on the brisket, other than the piece of fat that separates the point and the flap. But we'll get to that later as I trim down. Really, it's not that hard. The rule of thumb is basically any kind of hard fat you want to get rid of, because that's not going to render during your cook, and it's not going to be a pleasant chew for anyone. So we're gonna get rid of all of that. And it might think, well, you're getting rid of a lot of beef. I'm really not, because most of this is kind of burnt, it would be burnt up in a cook, but a lot of this, 90% fat, plus you wanna get rid of a bit of the gray. That's oxidized from the packaging process. But we're just gonna keep going. This is actually kind of of all the briskets I've done, this is probably like the fattiest, non-fat cap side I've ever seen. This is kind of remarkable. But we're just gonna keep going. You normally do end up taking 3 to 4, sometimes, I'd say 2 to 3 pounds off. This one might be 3 to 4 by the time we're done with her. That's all right though. What you're doing is sacrificing a little for the benefit of the rest, really. So this probably started at 16 pounds. I'll bring it down to 12 probably. And we'll see how it goes. Anything loose. There is a little bit of silver skin on top. You can take it or leave it. I like to get rid of it, because you're gonna get a better season that way. Right. Going along. What I love about the prime is there's a lot of intermuscular fat. You could go choice or select, but you gotta pay that much more attention to your cook, your temperature, how long. You gotta check in more with it. You can dry out your flat, which is this piece of the muscle we're looking at right here. Flat's here, decal fat, point on this side. As you can see, it comes to a point. Pretty self-explanatory. All right, so we're just gonna continue to shave away and kind of shape our brisket. For a good buddy of mine who's currently in Flagstaff on a date. I'm gonna round this off. Mitch, why would you round that off? This thing's gonna cook for 12 hours. Look how thin this is, okay? That would be absolutely burnt up and basically useless by the time we took it out of the smoker. So again, it's that rule, slice a little to save a lot. And by that we get a little bit thicker flat, still kind of, still a little bit on the thin side, but we're not done yet. We'll see how much we take when it's all said and done. And I'm just lifting up the bottom here to get all this silver skin and fat. Whoever butchered this cow didn't do a fantastic job. They were pretty reckless with their butchering, but that's okay. It ain't perfect. So, like I said again, any big striations of fat are taken off. The more, it's kind of like why people would trim a pork butt, anything, beef ribs, anything with a lot of fat on it. The more muscle you can expose, the more your seasoning's gonna adhere. But there are rules, right? There's always gotta be rules. The more fat you take off, the less protection for the longer cook. So I'm just kind of feeling along, looking for loose pieces that might just get absolutely toasted in the cook here. Not a big fan of that. It feels pretty firm. I'm also paying a little attention as to the shape. So if you think of this as a car going along, right? And we're driving along this way, let's say, because we're always gonna put the thickest part of our meat towards the heat. If we're driving along, we want that air to come smoothly over the car. Well, the same thing happens to a brisket. You want the smoke and the heat to come distribute evenly over it. Otherwise, you're gonna get hot pockets, you're gonna get uneven cooked areas. Not going to be of a good time. So this is a little bit different. We're gonna learn together on this one because I've never seen a point this cut up already. And it's actually, it kind of bugs me a little bit, but we're gonna power through anyway. There again, just kind of taking off really the unedible, take two, the unedible pieces. You know, this oxidized fat, that's not appetizing at all. That's not something you really want. Okay. All right. I'm going to continue to round this off here. Because there again, in the name of airflow, you want this rounded. A lot of people use these trimmings for sausage, or they'll actually take this fat and render it into a tallow, and then they'll use that tallow to either baste the brisket or use for any other. There's numerous reasons why you could use it. For right now, I'm just kind of throwing it. I don't have any use. I'm not making sausage or anything like that yet. So we're tossing it. A little more here. On everything linear. Everything linear. All these big pieces here that are just gonna fry. We're gonna take these off. Okay, I'm pretty pleased. Pretty pleased with this side. If you look at, if you can come, Brady, come down here at the bottom, right here. No, stay there. But there is an absolute massive fat cap that we're gonna take down over here. Everybody goes, you know, ½ inch, ¼ inch. It's really up to you. It's how much do you want to render during the cook. This is a pretty big brisket, so it's probably gonna render quite a bit. So we're gonna leave enough on to protect, but take enough off to season. And all that fat should render nicely. If it doesn't, it'll done like that. So we're gonna flip this over now. All right. This is gonna go away. There again, why? Because this thing is sitting up pretty aggressively. There's some nice meat up top here. But I hate to kick a dead horse, but we're taking it off so we don't absolutely ruin the rest of the brisket here. If we don't take it off, it burns, it gets dry. There's really no way to discern good from bad. So we're just gonna get rid of it and make it all be good. Big piece of fat here. Don't need it. Okay. So now we're starting to see a brisket shape. Another big piece here. A little bit of meat, a whole lot of fat. Yeah, I'm starting to like the way that looks. But we're certainly not done trimming it because there is a lot of fat over on this side here. That whole chunk was just pure white fat. And that is no bueno. Yeah, I mean, we're talking big chunks of fat. This, you'd need 20 hours to render all this. You gotta pay attention to what you're trimming. Still got a lot over here. We're gonna go a little bit deeper. It's that old saying, go until she sounds expensive. Still cutting away that fat. Pretty remarkable, actually. Get rid of this center cut. Yeah, scalped it a little bit there. That's all right. There's actually a little piece of oxidation. I'm not a huge fan there. That's all right. I'm gonna really make sure this gets tidied up. Yep, a little bit of scalp. Don't really, don't make that a habit. If it happens, it happens. Nobody's gonna ungrade this, so I'm not too worried about it, but just taking off all this kind of surface tissue. Shave it down, make it clean, make it friendly to the eyes. Scalped it there again, that's all right. This is good. I mean, this isn't so bad. This is gonna be like the driest part of the cook anyway, so there again, if I were serving this to a restaurant, you probably wouldn't use anything up until about here anyway, just because this is gonna get pretty darn done, and this way is gonna be kind of where you want to serve from anyway. Man, this feels like a lot of fat right here. Thick. There we go. There's the point coming through. Okay. A lot of intermuscular fat in the point, so I'm actually not worried about taking too much off the top. Harder. Okay. Just feeling around for loose spots again. Starting to look pretty good. I'm gonna carve a big piece of this decal out, just because they're, again, basically useless. I mean, that whole slice right there was just about 80% fat. All right, so now we're starting to look like something we want to put on the smoker. And as you can see, I've probably taken close to 3 pounds off this hoopty. It helped to have a sharp knife. It also helps. I had this in the freezer for about 30 minutes before I started doing this. Kind of firm up that fat. You get a good idea as to where you are here. And just a hair. All right. Okay, so now that it appears, I've got most around that again. There again, it's just kind of super thin, and we'd end up with a piece of charcoal at the end that no one would really want to eat. Okay. Take a little bit more here. We're almost done. If you're still watching, I commend you. Trying to level out everything here. Like I said, my kind of general rule is if it's really hard fat, it's not going to render, so we're just going to get rid of it. And the point is a very resilient piece of meat. And I'm not someone who cooks hot and fast, so I'll be able to give it time to render that intermuscular fat. So, yeah, I've taken a lot off the fat cap, and that's okay. I'm pretty pleased with it. Yeah, just kidding. There's like an inch here. Boy, this cow ate well. You know what, I might just trim that off. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Okay. Now that I've got as far as my road just got butchered. Now that I got this trimmed up to my liking, it's not perfect, never will be. I'm okay with that. It's time to look at the way your muscle runs. So, as you can see on the flat, it's running right at you, right? So I will actually make a cut right there. Why? Because when I take this puppy off the smoker and there's a bark on this piece of meat, I'll know exactly where my cuts need to start to come this way. And then when we get to the point, we flip it 90 degrees and cut this way, but we'll cover that when we do that. So this hoopty is ready for seasoning. That was something else right there. Ready for seasoning in 2 seconds. Okay, now to season. So I have 2 seasons. Good friend of mine sent me Meat Church's entire seasoning catalog that I really thoroughly enjoy. So with briskets, this particular customer asked specifically for a little bit of spice. So I'm gonna put on Meat Church barbecue rub, the Holy Cow paste, and there's some dehydrated garlic and some other spices. So we're gonna start there. This is what I seasoned with in Boney, which those of you who watch this that were there know exactly what I'm talking about. So we're just gonna apply a liberal seasoning. Okay, beautiful. For the Holy Cow. Now for the Holy Gospel. The reason I use this one, the first ingredient is sugar, so it gives a little, a little softness to that salt and pepper, which is very, very Texas barbecue, salt, pepper, and that's about it. So we're gonna use a little of this. I'm not gonna be as generous with this as I would be with the Holy Cow, but still wanna get that flavor. These are called rubs, but you never want to rub. And you're going to concentrate seasoning in certain spots and creating good barbecue. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to let this sit for about 30 minutes. Once that 30 minutes is up, we'll flip it over. The reason I'm letting it sit for 30 minutes is because we're going to let that kind of sweat the brisket, and then the seasoning will adhere and create a more consistent across the board bark. So join us when we come back. All right. The reason I brought you back, not like seasoning is something you really want to see, but I wanted to make the point that if you do leave that seasoning on to set a little bit, it does, and maybe I'm in the light a little, it does actually start to turn a little darker, simply because you're going to start drawing out a little bit of moisture from the brisket itself. It's not like you want to suck all the moisture out, but at this time, if I pick this up, I shouldn't really lose. I'm not losing any seasoning, which is great. So, do it again. Let's do it again. Liberal. Get it in on the sides. Okay. This point is weird in the way that it's shaped, but like I said earlier, it's, you can't really, nothing I can do about it. I'm gonna have to order some more Holy Cow, it appears. That was a great addition to the spice. Thanks, Ross. You know who you are. All right, all the sides. As you can see, I'm extremely. I want seasoning all over this thing, because that's what's going to build our bark, is that fat renders. So we got this seasoned up. Again, another half hour. I'm just going to take the seasoning that I've dropped, make sure I got all the spots on it. You're watching me, Pete Barbecue Prep a Brisket. I really thank you for being with me. Hopefully this is just the beginning. I know my griddle channel died pretty quickly, but we moved, so yeah. But here's our brisket. Like I said, thanks again. This is just gonna be a prep and seasoning video. I'll probably film as this cook goes on, but for right now, I really appreciate you joining me, and hopefully you got a little something out of this. If not, leave a comment and I'd be happy to answer it the best way I can. Thanks so much.